People keep asking whether things are falling apart or whether this country is becoming something dangerous, authoritarian, unrecognizable. Some may even use the term fascist. But the problem with that framing, it assumes that there was a stable democracy, and suddenly it broke. The truth is, though, for many communities, especially Black, Indigenous communities, the system people are now afraid of never functioned for us. Surveillance, exclusion, political punishment, economic extraction, these are not some future problem. These are everyday realities, enforced by law, policy, and violence. So what is changing now is not the system. The system is still the same and it's functioning like it always has. What's changed is the people who could no longer avoid it. Fascism doesn't arrive all at once. It doesn't come in with one election, right? It expands. It normalizes. It tests how much people will tolerate. It begins, as it always has, at the margins. And it moves inwards. So by the time it becomes undeniably fascist, it's already deeply embedded. This means the moment right now that we have is not about recognizing fascism. We are past that. This now is about response. Naming fascism is not enough. Outrage is not enough. Voting alone is not enough. Fascism is a social condition as much as it is a political one. It survives by isolating people, eroding shared responsibilities, and convincing communities that they are powerless as individuals. Challenging it requires the exact opposite. It requires cooperation, shared values, cultural grounding, economic solidarity, purpose beyond survival, creativity, and faith that collective action matters. That's why I'm focusing on Kwanzaa. Not as a holiday celebration, not as a symbolic representation of the past, but as a framework built during crisis by people who understood that these institutions cannot be trusted to save us. A framework designed to rebuild the very thing fascism hates: strong community. So this Kwanzaa is not about remembering the past. It's about preparing for what is required now to have a better future. Because fascism doesn't fall on its own. It doesn't fall at the hands of one person. It has to be dismantled. We're going to talk about the tools to do just that. One of the most common ways people try to dismiss Kwanzaa is by saying it's made up, as if that alone makes it illegitimate. But every tradition that you recognize was made up. Holidays do not emerge naturally. They are created by people at specific times for specific reasons. Thanksgiving tells a story about colonial innocence. Independence Day celebrates freedom while ignoring who was excluded from it. Even religious holidays were reshaped by politics, power, and survival. Traditions endure not because they are ancient or old, but because they serve a purpose. What makes Kwanzaa uncomfortable to the critics is not that it was created, but that it was created honestly. Kwanzaa does not pretend to be timeless. It does not hide its origins. It was developed openly during a period of political repression, cultural erasure, and state violence. It was created by people who understood waiting for someone else to fix things was not an option. Kwanzaa was not designed to make anyone feel comfortable. It was designed to help people survive conditions shaped by domination, extraction, and control. That matters because resistance is not spontaneous. It is practiced. It is taught. It is passed down. And every successful resistant movement has relied on shared values, shared responsibilities, and shared meaning. This is where Kwanzaa fit. It's not a replacement for political action. It's not a substitute for organizing. It is a cultural framework that supports both of those things. It reinforces habits that authoritarian systems work hard to destroy. Cooperation instead of isolation, responsibility instead of abandonment, purpose instead of distraction. When people dismiss Kwanzaa as artificial, what they are really rejecting is that the idea that communities can consciously design alternatives to systems that harm them. History shows the opposite. The most durable forms of resistance were the intentional ones. They were built, they were practiced, they were refined under pressure. Kwanzaa belongs to that tradition. This series treats Kwanzaa as what it actually is. Not a holiday to be defended, but a framework to be used. A set of principles that can help people recognize how power operates and how it can be challenged collectively. We are not here to debate whether Kwanzaa deserves legitimacy. We are here because the conditions that made it necessary have not disappeared, and neither has a need for the tools that help people resist, rebuild, and endure together. There's another way people try to dismiss Kwanzaa. They reduce the entire tradition to the name most commonly associated with its early formalization. And then they argue that because they can discredit that person, they can disregard the whole principles themselves. That move is not accidental. It's a familiar strategy. It treats collective work as if it were the product of a single individual. It pretends that cultural movements, survival practices, emerge from a single voice instead of many hands. That's not how traditions are built. No meaningful framework for survival has ever belonged to one person alone. Labor movements did not belong to one organizer. Civil rights movements did not belong to one leader. Culture is formed in conversation, in struggle, and in response to shared conditions. The principles at the heart of Kwanzaa were not invented in isolation. They were drawn from practices that already existed across Black communities nationwide. Cooperation, shared responsibility, economic solidarity, cultural grounding. These were not theoretical concepts. These were lived necessities. Trying to invalidate those tools because of a footnote misunderstands, misrepresents how resistance works. If tools were only valid when their origin stories were flawless, there would be no tools left to use. Every tradition, every political framework, every institution carries contradiction. What matters is not whether a framework has a complicated history, but whether it helps people survive and resist harm now. Fascist and authoritarian systems rely on this type of reduction. They personalize what is collective. They turn structural conversations into moral distractions. They encourage people to argue about names so they never have to confront systems. Focusing on a single figure allows people to avoid harder questions. Questions about power, questions about responsibility, questions about whether these principles actually threaten the systems they benefit from. Kwanzaa does not ask anyone to venerate individuals. We are not hoping Black Santa Claus comes down and brings us gifts. It asks people instead to practice values. Those values were shaped by many organizers, many communities, and many moments of resistance. They survive because people use them, not because someone named them. This is not about defending biographies. It is about evaluating tools. And the question worth asking is not whether the origin story is tidy or not. The question is whether these principles help people build solidarity, resist fragmentation, and challenge systems that concentrate power and wealth upwards while pushing harm downward. If they do, then they remain valid, regardless of whose name appears in the footnote. Because survival does not wait for perfect history. It uses what works.